My fellow Americans, it looks like some things have changed. Are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents?
You want an abortion? Get one!
Younger parents aren't sure that an appreciation of America is the right thing to teach modern children.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
When I drive into a neighborhood and there are American flags, it's a message of white supremacy.
I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that could result in an erosion of the American spirit.
We need to completely dismantle the police department.
If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is free, and freedom is special and rare. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. As long as we remember our first principle and believe in ourselves, the future will always be ours. Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three little words: we the people. We the people are free. Once you begin a
And the nation and the million faces formed together, made for elevation. And the soldier won't surrender faith. It's like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. We're rising up, rising up, we're rising up, rising up, we're rising up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. We have a very, very special guest today. We have a very great show here tonight. With us tonight is going to be the Honorable Mayor Kevin Scarpati. Everyone knows he's up for re-election this year. and he would be running against a Republican, Elaine Cariotti. But tonight is all about Kevin, and we're going to let him tell us a little bit about what's going on in the city. He's going to answer some of the questions that we have and that I have and what you guys have submitted. But as always, just if you're new to the show, I'm Joe Vollano. I am your host and your guiding light through the nonsense that is what I call politics. And it is getting crazier and crazier by the day. But hopefully some of the stuff in the city, hopefully we have the man here tonight to help get some answers out of it. And without further ado, let me get him in here. There he is. There's the mayor. Kevin, can you hear me?
I got you, Joe. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, there you are. All right. So anyone who does not know who this gentleman is, if you've been living in the city, you don't know who he is, that's a huge problem. This is the Honorable Mayor Kevin Scarpati. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm glad you finally had some time to share with us. I'm going to give you the floor and just give you the first couple of minutes. Tell people about yourself and what's going on.
Thanks, Joe. So audio is good. You can hear me?
I hear you good.
Perfect. So, Joe, thanks again for inviting me on and having me on your show. I think we tried to do this several months ago, but it was nearing the end of the school year, and there was literally event after event after event. And I unfortunately was not available to come on, but, it worked out this time around. So, again, pleasure to be here. And I look forward to hearing from your viewers and those that send in questions along with the conversation to follow. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kevin Scarpati, mayor of the great city of Meriden. I've been mayor since 2015. Brief background on myself, born and raised in Meriden, so lifelong resident. First elected to public office back in 2009 at the ripe age of 20 years old to the Meriden Board of Education. Really got involved because education was near and dear to my heart, impacting our students, our families, and our teachers, obviously. And then from 2009 to 2011, I served on the Board of Ed and then was elected to a seat on the Meriden City Council. Served 4 years on the City Council, and then obviously, as I mentioned, was elected mayor in 2015. Throughout that time, I've really learned a great deal. It's been really an experience of a lifetime, meeting tremendous people, but also having the opportunity to meet leaders from across the nation and learn from them as to, what best practices are. And of course, this past year being ravaged with COVID-19, unfortunately put a lot of things on hold, and families hurt, businesses hurt, many people still suffering through this pandemic. And through that time, we were able to connect with leaders on a different basis and use platforms such as this and go into a virtual setting to keep moving business forward. And that was, really important for us. Not only help and retain the businesses here locally, that is one thing that I think we need to do more of. Is economic development in our city, business growth, focus on jobs, obviously growing our grand list, which helps with our tax base to help offset the tax burden on the city. And so, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we were able to continue those efforts. Our school system, hats off to our teachers and administrators who, from September last year, kept the doors open, never had to close a school. We were in-person learning as we've learned. That is what our children need, not just right now, but all the time, in-person learning. And so we realized how critical that was, and our schools remained open for the school year, and will be starting actually up on September 1st. So believe it or not, summer is unfortunately over, but the school year is beginning. I look forward to a successful school year, a safe school year for our students and staff as they get back in the buildings. More things that we're focusing on include crime. That's something that unfortunately we saw an uptick of this past year with an increase in gun violence. We have reason to believe that COVID-19 had a lot to do with that. Obviously, the courts being closed and different programs suspending their services led to an increase, and one that not just ravaged the streets of Meriden, but communities across the nation. And so our police chief, Roberto Rosado, who started, and I believe he was on your show some time ago, started with our department in July of last year, really came on, strong leadership at the top, selected 2 new deputy chiefs, and under their leadership, we've really made several arrests, but we've got our work cut out for us. We've got a long way to go. And so, we need to really get our arms around that and come out of this COVID-19 crisis. We need to encourage people to get vaccinated. As I mentioned, I think it was yesterday, we had a press conference on vaccinations and the importance of getting our numbers up. Unfortunately, we are seeing COVID cases rise, and I think that's one thing to mention is that we're seeing hospitalizations increase. We're seeing our positivity rate increase, not just here in Meriden, but as the governor announced today, there are new rollouts and mandates for vaccines for now teachers and childcare providers. And so, anything we can do to help get the word out there, I'd be remiss without recognizing Leah Crown, our health director, and the amazing job that our nurses and our health department has done, not only to get people vaccinated, but continue to provide those services to our seniors who otherwise, didn't have a lunch because our senior center was closed. We started mobile food, and we were able to provide those meals to those who needed it the most, including our seniors. And so the city still runs. I think it was about a month into the pandemic when I got a phone call from a resident who was getting water backing up into their basement because of a water main break on the road. And that was the first time I kind of realized that, there's more to city government than COVID, because for those 4 weeks, it was just everything was COVID. We've been fortunate, I think, from a sense, unfortunate that we've lost life and continue to lose life, but fortunate that, it wasn't any worse than it was. And Meriden really stepped up and realized that when you needed to mask up, you masked up. And you needed to get vaccinated, you got vaccinated. Work's not done. We've got a little ways to go, but happy to come on and share that information today.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And it's nice that you talked about vaccines and the event yesterday. We'll get into that as we get into the show. But my first question is, you always, if you listen to the show, you'll hear me talk about, how I feel about the mayor's position, where I think you take a lot of the brunt of what happens at city council. I think they use you as a shield. What do you personally see the job of mayor is, other than what I would call it as a ribbon cutting ceremonial, do nothing, as I say, position? I know you think there's more to it than that, and I'm sure there is. Why don't you explain to us what you think your role is in the city as far as reaching out to the citizens?
There's no two ways about that. We've got, for those of you who don't know, obviously we have a city council that is elected, some members at large, some members area district. They are the ones that really vote on and pass resolutions and things that govern the city. You've got a city manager that operates the day-to-day policy, hiring, firing of city government and city staff. And then you've got this mayor position that's sitting out here that at one point, several decades ago, was a strong mayor position, and since has morphed into this more ceremonial position that it is today. The role, as I not only see it, but live it on a daily basis, is one of helping people. I need to be as accessible as possible. I do, fortunately, have some say in what happens at City Hall, and at the very least can get not only answers to constituents, but hopefully resolve an issue that may arise. And so using platforms such as Facebook and social media to be as accessible as possible, fielding those complaints and concerns, passing them along to staff to try and prioritize to the best of our ability. So being visible and making sure that we're helping. I'm also a consensus builder. I mean, on the city council, you obviously have a majority and a minority caucus that, believe it or not always agree. And so to kind of be the middle of the road guy, for those of you who don't know, I'm unaffiliated. So I'm not affiliated with either party. I don't caucus with either party. But, we do have leadership meetings that, I sit in and help hopefully find a balance as to what, the Democrats may want and what the Republicans may want. I'm that at times voice of reason, I think, for both parties. But I'm very much the face of the city. So if there are issues facing our city, I'm the guy delivering the news to the news media, press conferences, families and relatives that may be going through a difficult time, but also welcoming new businesses or working with current businesses. My office also reaches out proactively to try and gain new business to the city. Those are things we're constantly doing. And then, as you know, I'm also in charge of recommending and appointing boards and commissions to the city council. So we have a variety of boards and commissions in the city, the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, the Ethics Board, and a variety of others that also have a responsibility in our city to pass as well rules, regulations, ordinances, and I'm responsible for appointing the people who ultimately serve on those committees to the city council for approval.
So you mentioned that you're an unaffiliated, and I we've had our talks about that. Why do you take the Democrats' endorsement instead of just running as a true independent?
I think, and I've said this, not necessarily in this show, but I've said it before to others. It's really difficult to do anything impactful in public office without some backing of a political party. And so, staying true to myself and my values of being that independent or unaffiliated, because I think there's a misnomer. An independent is actually, if you're an independent, you're registered to a party. The vast majority of actually Meriden voters and electors are unaffiliates. And so I take any endorsement. I think last year I took the Democratic endorsement and the We the People endorsement. And so I'll take any endorsement that, helps not only get me into office, to help better the city of Meriden and leverage any opportunity I can to do so, because it's a challenge to just serve as a petitioning candidate on a ballot and really gain the strength you need to get elected into office.
Fair enough. All right, let's dive into some of these issues, shall we? You mentioned COVID. You talked about the event that happened yesterday. So let's talk about that first. I have some numbers that Leah was able to give me on because and here's the issue, a lot of what's going on, especially when it comes to the new majority leader, is everything seems to be about race. And that seems to be where this whole city council has gone. It's gone off the deep end, in my opinion. I know you have different opinions on it, but the event yesterday, I attended the event yesterday, and she mentioned, that they've been reaching out to the Hispanics and the Black community to try to get vaccinations. But when I asked her for the numbers, and she had them for me because she's good at what she does over there in the health department, there is no disparity between Hispanics, African Americans, whites. Really, if there's any disparity at all, it's upon Asians, who are way up high, and American Indians, which are way down low. So so yesterday they were pushing that there was an inequity of vaccines being delivered, but that's just not the case. It's just not the case at all, and the numbers show that. So why do we keep pushing this fake narrative?
So with regard to vaccines, Meriden was chosen one of 22 municipalities across the state of Connecticut to receive a vaccine equity grant, which our health department applied for and has received and has been implementing since May. And so from May through the end of August is the timeline on this grant. It was really the job of our health department to recruit many of the agencies you saw yesterday at the press conference to help increase our numbers, especially within the minority groups of non-white, Hispanic, and the Black community. And we did that by partnering with our agencies, working with trusted community providers to go door to door and solicit and host pop-up clinics so that they were as accessible as possible. They were free and accessible within the inner district specifically. We went to Black churches, we went to Hispanic churches, we hosted clinics at those facilities to get those numbers up. And so just as an example, I can tell you that, as of June, going back to June, we were at 36.3% of Hispanics in the city of Meriden were fully vaccinated, 36.3%. Today we're at 51%. Right. So you state that today there really isn't much of a gap between white and Hispanic, but back in June there was. Blacks back in June, we had 32.5% of the black population in Meriden were vaccinated. 43.4% are fully vaccinated today. So large increases on the Hispanic vaccination population, large increases for the black population in the city. And believe it or not, whites have gone from 44% to 52% fully vaccinated. And so, of all the races that we've looked at, we have seen the greatest increases among Hispanics and blacks, and that's because of the outreach efforts that have been going on every single day. Literally, there's a clinic every single day in our city, mainly because of this vaccine equity grant that we received. We were able to really pull out all the stops, get our staff out there, work with different agencies, and get the shots in as many arms as possible.
So just to kind of follow up on that. So you're right on the numbers that I have here, 52%. Okay, so everyone seems pretty equitable now. So what's the plan moving forward? Are you still just going to Hispanics and black communities? What about the 49% of whites that aren't vaccinated, that are low income? And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, or actually it was about a month ago. There are more poor white families in this city than there are African-American or black. And there's twice as many Hispanics that are in poverty in the city of Meriden that might not have access or might have the way of getting to these vaccines if they want them. And I think me and Leah had a nice conversation about that I think some of these numbers show that they've plateaued because there are still a lot of people who just don't want the vaccine at all. They just don't trust it for whatever reason it is. I mean, I happen to be one of those people that I just don't want it. I don't need it. I don't feel I need it. But why are we only targeting certain races? I always thought that the city's job was to treat everybody equally and to make sure they're giving all services to everyone equally, whether it's education, public safety, even health and human services, equitably to everybody. I just don't like this fact that we are building a divide between people based on race in this city, and it's becoming a real bad trend in my eyes.
Yeah, Joe, and that's not at all what I want to do. I'm not trying to build a divide in between any specific race, culture, or area of our city.
There are many in city council that want to, that are.
So with respect to the inequities that had existed, and there were, right? I mean, the numbers show that early on we saw that those in the minority communities were lagging well behind those who were white in getting vaccinations. And so that's why the health department has, partnered with a variety of different agencies to target those communities, to really build up those numbers and get them to where they are today. That's not to say that those are the only focuses or should be the only focuses, because as you mentioned, we can only move forward, if we all move forward together. And so whether you are Hispanic, African American, white, Latino, Asian American, we all need to move forward together, and we all need to be getting vaccinated in this sense. I think our numbers will improve not only as the mandates roll out, but also as the FDA, hopefully we see this soon, goes from this emergency use authorization where we are at today with the vaccines to fully authorized. I think that's something that needs to happen. I think that'll help with this issue of trust that you mentioned, Joe. And so I think that happening is a likely next step, and hopefully we'll continue to see our numbers go up. But you're right. We need to be, going across our community, which we've been doing. There's a clinic tomorrow at John Berry, for example, in the Inner District. But then Saturday, we're going to be at Hunter Golf Course, from 10 to 3 all day Saturday, providing vaccines. So we are across our community, vaccinating anyone who wants to get the shot, and I encourage you to do so.
Great. So for those of you who are just joining us, we are with the mayor of the city of Meriden, Mayor Kevin Scarpati, and he's answering some of our questions. So let's talk about the emergency dispatch center. That's been something that's been ongoing for quite a while. And we've now gone a year and a half, and we have emergency dispatchers working 90 to 100 hours a week. I've had multiple conversations with the city manager on the issue, along as, if you watched this show previously, we've had a lot of people talk about, their experiences within the dispatch center, whether they're current or previous. Where do you see the real issue here going forward? As you as a mayor, obviously, not much you could do about it, but I do believe you do have a voice, and I believe that the mayor is the ambassador for the city, and therefore should be, obviously vocal on these issues. But what is it that you're doing that could help them down there?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty vocal. I think at the last public safety meeting, I expressed my concern and frustrations for the numbers that we're currently seeing down at our dispatch center.
Not to cut you off,
it's inexcusable.
They keep shutting. They keep canceling their public safety committee meetings. They've had two.
Right. So I said the last public safety meeting, right? Which I think.
Do you see that as a major problem that people are saying, especially counselors, that this is a major priority, but yet the one committee that's overseeing it cancels their every meeting other than two?
Yeah, I can understand that. I can tell you that, Councilor Cardona, the deputy mayor, and I, talk about this subject frequently. We don't fortunately just communicate during those meetings. I'm talking with the city manager on this subject weekly, multiple times a week, to be not only provided updates, but also to kind of lay out a plan, one that actually has criteria and numbers associated with it, so we can hold those in leadership positions accountable, including the city manager and ourselves as elected bodies, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to improve this scenario down at the Emergency Communications Center right now. So to those who continue to work and put in the hours and work, the mandated time, thank you. That doesn't go unnoticed. However, it's not fair. It's not fair to you that you're deprived of your time with your family and your loved ones and your vacations away. That's not fair, and we recognize that. Back in January, we had a meeting with the city manager and put numbers in place that said, within the next 5 months, by May 1st, we need to be meeting these thresholds. By May 1st, they had met those thresholds. They had increased staffing full-time equivalencies by 50%. Since May, unfortunately, and this is what came out in that public safety meeting, we had seen a decline. The numbers, went back to not just where they were in January, but worse so. Today, I can tell you that we currently stand at, I pulled the numbers before we jumped on, figuring we'd be discussing this, 5 full-timers and 2 part-timers with 3 full-time in training. We also have recruited the police and the fire departments to assist. We have 4 firefighters that are currently sitting in and doing shifts, 2 police officers that have started sitting in on shifts. However, police and fire can't be looked at as a solution, right? They are police officers and firefighters. We need them out doing their jobs to make sure that our response times stay low and we're getting to people in an orderly fashion. Dispatch, we need to work on hiring. There's some personnel issues that we're working on as we speak. Unfortunately, I can't publicize those. I can't tell you exactly what we're doing. Those are personnel matters, and that's confidential. But I can tell you it doesn't go unnoticed. It's a conversation we're having every single day. It needs to improve, and we absolutely recognize the severity of the situation we are in currently.
Yeah, I know I keep hearing this, the fire department, police departments joining in. The police department have one person sit in for 4 hours to observe and nothing else. None of them have logged any time, and that's been confirmed. The fire department had 8 people that have volunteered for it. 1 has actually taken some shifts. No one else has. And again, that's another thing that's easily confirmed from the recordings. So I keep hearing this, but then the reality of it is that these things aren't happening. They're pushing for them to happen, but they're not. And from the conversations that I had with the city manager, is that 1, we have a director who is certified to take calls. She just chooses not to. And then she's out of there at 4:30 every day while her workers are working, 90 to 100 hours a week. And I think we keep using this word. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not safe. It's not safe for the dispatchers. It's not safe for the police department, the fire department. It's not safe for the citizens in the city of Meriden. And I really don't think anyone's taken it seriously enough that we've had former dispatchers that have tried to come back on to help out temporarily that have been declined. That's a serious issue for me.
Joe, I can tell you that from my standpoint, and I can only speak from my own experience, is that I take this extremely seriously. We have brought back on. We actually had a dispatcher recently retire who we've brought back on, is currently sitting shifts as we speak. And so, we are taking this seriously. It's a safety risk. You're 100% correct. Not just for our dispatchers who are working countless hours at end, but also for the police and fire who rely on accurate data to be given to them when a call comes in, but also for our residents who rely on that information to get to police and fire, get entered accurately, correctly, and swiftly so that we can respond to these emergencies. Because otherwise, if we don't have the right information and we don't have a quick response, we have a matter of life or death, unfortunately, at our hands that could go the wrong way. And you're absolutely correct. It's not safe. It's something that we take absolutely serious. And I can't stress that enough, that I'm not ignoring the issue. We aren't ignoring the issue. It's top of mind. And I'm confident we will see improvement soon, or significant changes will take place.
Great. And it's nice that you talked about, listen, the use of force committee, something that I am totally 100% against. They use that term. We want to do something before something catastrophic happens that forces our hand. That's how I feel about the dispatch center. If they want to use that statement, they should be using it for the dispatch center, not for the use of force, because this is something that we don't have a problem with in the city of Meriden. So why are some on the city council, and why was this committee created when all stats show that there is no problem in the city of Meriden? Why are we trying to create issues that aren't there?
Joe, as somebody who's not only, I think, familiar with where I stand, but I also sat in every single use of force study committee meeting. To their credit, we had a group of volunteers that met, I think, every 2 weeks for the better part of 6-8 months, something to that effect. They looked and reviewed all of our current policies and procedures. They met with, our chief and other police officials, including the union president. They looked at all the relevant data as it pertains to Meriden use of force, and what other municipalities and cities and towns are doing, not just in Connecticut, but across the nation. There was a survey that went out with 530 respondents, which I think we could all agree did not meet our expectations as to what we would have liked to have seen from community input. But that community feedback showed us that there is trust and support for our police department in our community. I proudly sit in this chair today as mayor of the city saying I support the men and women of the Meriden Police Department. I've also been vocal in saying that I don't believe a civilian review board is the way to go. I don't believe a group of volunteer community members to oversee use of force matters in our police department is the right approach. If there's going to be oversight, not only do we have a current system in place that'll provide, the corrective actions and checks and balance systems, but we also have the Public Safety Committee, Joe, as you alluded to earlier, that's comprised of elected officials, all Meriden residents that have city staff at their, for resource at their meetings. And I think that is a more than reasonable approach to go, is to recruit our Public Safety Committee. And the feedback I've been given and the pushback is, well, that's not what the Public Safety Committee does. We review data on a quarterly basis. Well, just because that's what you're doing today, doesn't mean that that's what your community, that your committee should be doing that tomorrow. And so as a former chair of the Public Safety Committee, I can tell you that I think my very first meeting as chair of public safety back in 2013 or whatever it was to review the use of force policies. We did trainings. We did demonstrations. We were a very hands-on committee at that time. And I don't see any reason why this committee could not take on more responsibility and do that instead of a civilian review board.
See, and this is where I have a problem with the city council, because city council likes to pawn a lot of stuff off on residents instead of doing the job that they were elected to do. And so that's quite irritating to me. But so let's talk about an issue that happened a couple months ago. And if you listen to that show that I did afterwards, this resolution that came out declaring racism a public health crisis in the city of Meriden. Do you actually believe that that is accurate? Do you really believe that racism is a public health crisis in the city of Meriden? So racism exists in the city of Meriden to an extent that it's all this is accurate?
Joe, I unfortunately, I would be ignorant to say that racism doesn't exist. I believe racism exists not just in the city of Meriden, but also, throughout the state and nation. So much so that municipalities, not just Meriden, we don't operate in a bubble here. I firmly believe, why reinvent the wheel anytime we look to do something. So when declaring racism as a public emergency, that's something that Meriden did in conjunction with many other municipalities, really just calling attention to the severity of the issue and recognizing, as we talked about earlier, the need to close those gaps. And we talked about, if you could just use the vaccine numbers on their surface, those numbers, if anything else, show a disparity in race, in differences in races, solely from what you would consider to be an equitable disbursement of a vaccine. But unless those additional efforts were geared and targeted toward those minority groups, we would not be at the level playing field we are today. And so, yes, I think it's important to recognize that. It's important to call it out. It's important to focus on it. Should it be everything we do 24/7 all the time? No. We obviously are a city of 60,000 people. I've said one of the greatest strengths in our city is a diverse population. And so we've got a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of hurdles that we need to jump and things that we need to tackle. But the equity among race needs to be a priority for us in order to ensure that our greatly diverse population are all treated fair.
Studies have linked racism to negative health and death outcomes, including interactions with police as a leading cause of death of black men. That's in the resolution. That is nowhere near true. Nowhere. There is not a single stat that shows that. But this is the kind of stuff that comes out of City Hall. This is the kind of stuff that when I talk about, puts a divide between people, or really calls our police department murderers, is pretty basically what it's calling it. How can you not see where the police department would have an issue with what's going on in City Hall right now?
Police should not have been named in that resolution.
That's not the only that's not the only issue in this resolution. There is not a single one on here that I went through that is true in the city of Meriden. And the question I would have is, if any of this actually is true, Democrats have been running this city for 30, 35 years. Would they not be the cause of it then? Why wouldn't they have taken action years ago on this? I think this is, again, to me, I don't know what's going on I don't know what their train of thought is. Obviously, you talk to these people every day. Is there something that I'm missing that I just don't understand their way of thinking, that maybe you could clarify what the hell is going on? Why we have all of a sudden turned everything that comes out of City Hall into racial indications of how they're trying to bring our city?
I mean, I guess it's all in perspective and how you look at it. I don't think we've turned everything into a race matter, but it was said to me some years ago when I think I was first elected to office, that it was troubling to walk into City Hall, and no matter what office you go in, they don't reflect, meaning the staff, the personnel within City Hall, don't reflect our community. And I think over the years, we needed to recognize that in order to change that. And so there's more than just, recognizing it. There's acting on it and putting, things in place to make significant change. And we've done that, but you have to call to action what exactly the issue is. And in that instance, I think recruitment has greatly improved, and we've gotten a more diverse workforce, but we still have a ways to go. To have offices scurry around to find somebody, for example, that can speak Spanish is a struggle. I mean, we need to have those resources more readily available in a city like Meriden. That is what we're dealing with, and we need to be able to provide those services to our residents, and they are our residents. Our police department, I can't say enough good about the police department. I would say I don't have the data in front of me, but probably among any one of our departments, the police department has been probably the most aggressive and the greatest at hiring an actively diverse workforce. And so, again, just more reason why, with racism and linking it back to the police department, we have a greatly diverse workforce in the Meriden Police Department. I don't think it's fair to cast that shadow on a department that is going above and beyond, not only to recruit a more diverse workforce, but to protect and to serve the families, that we serve as elected officials. It's certainly not fair to them, and I understand that it has taken a hit on morale, and we need to do more, I think, to recognize the accomplishments of our police department, fire department, and others that are doing it right, and not necessarily just focusing on issues that we want to change, but celebrate our successes as well.
Well, true. But when I hear what you just said, I basically hear, okay, well, white people need not apply because we need to make sure we now choose our workforce based off of race. And that I have a serious issue with. And not that I want more white people, black people, Hispanic. I want the best person for the job. And I think from what you just said, it's basically white people beware of your job. And then when you do...
No, Joe, don't put words in my mouth, man.
No,
don't put words in my mouth. You are putting words in my mouth, so I'm just asking you not to do that.
I will not. What I hear, not just come from you, but from the whole city council, is that beware of your job. And then when you do get that job taken away, it's going to someone who may not be as qualified, but just based off the color of their skin, they're going to get it. I see that as a problem. That even the talk of it is a huge problem to me, because again, I don't think City Hall should be doing anything based on race or ethnicity or anything. They should be just taking the best people for the job. Same thing with, when I ask about elected officials, don't vote for someone based on the color of their skin. That's stupid. Because I tell you what, sometimes that gets us into problems. So I hate hearing those kind of things coming out of City Hall. It just puts my antennas up as, that's creates more of a problem than anything.
So before we move on, let me just respond to that, if I may.
Go ahead.
Not once did I ever mention sacrificing qualifications. What I did say was that we needed to recognize that we needed to do a better job at outreach and recruitment. And I think we've done that. We needed to recognize that if there was an issue because we could think we have the most qualified workforce, but who's to say we're reaching out to the right people in the right places? And so I think we've expanded upon what we were doing to a broader and greater audience. And we've become a better workforce because of it. One that's probably more qualified than we were several years ago. Not only were we more diverse, I'd argue that we're also more qualified. And so by no means am I saying sacrifice qualifications for race, not at all. But I'm saying we needed to recognize that we should be doing more to reach more people and broaden the workforce and the diversity within city government. And I think we've done that.
I listened to the speech that was during the press conference, and all these colleges that were outreached were all, like they said, Hispanic or African American. So is that the only ones we're doing outreach to now? Because I didn't hear, again, and this is the problem I have when city employees get involved in racial justice groups and stuff like that, because it starts to blur the lines of what government is. Government shouldn't be in that game. So when I hear we're spending money, grant money, whatever it is, on just promoting, just outreach to black colleges or Hispanic colleges, I want the best person for the job. We should be outreaching to everywhere then. I don't know why we're just picking and choosing which colleges we want to put in to grant money just so we can sit there and say, hey, look what we're doing.
Joe, I think that was in reference to churches.
No, that was the college, Howard College and stuff like that. I think you might have left that before
Okay.
that was. But they were saying all the colleges that they're doing outreach to in order to get employees in. Because they talked about it too there yesterday.
Yeah, listen, I can't tell you Again, I wasn't there, but I can't tell you, all the outreach efforts. Happy to get more information as to what we're doing. But I know we're working with our state colleges, local colleges, and community colleges alike. So I think those were targeted as an example of what we're doing, for outreach to the minority community. But we're certainly not just focusing on, minority colleges. As I think it goes back to the point we raised earlier of making sure that we're casting the broadest net possible.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just want government out of everything, to be completely honest. That's always been my approach. The less government, the better. And when the government, again, starts picking and choosing winners and losers, I find that to be a huge problem. So I'm going to wrap it up because I know you said you gave me 40 minutes. We're right on 40 minutes. So do you have any fundraisers coming up?
So thanks. Yeah, I do next week. So Wednesday, the 25th, we do have a fundraiser for the campaign over at Doghouse Bar and Grill, 999 Broad Street. And then we'll be planning and announcing another that'll be taking place in September. But we do have one Wednesday, 5:30 to 8:30 at the Doghouse on Broad Street.
All right, Kevin, 2 minutes. Why should people reelect you as mayor?
I think it's been said that over the course of the last 40 minutes, we've done a lot of great things in the city of Meriden, but we're certainly not perfect. We have our challenges. We have our work cut out for us. I'm pleased with the progress the city of Meriden has made with the redevelopment of downtown. We've got the beautiful Meriden Green with all new infrastructure and improved housing around it. But that's not nearly enough. We need to now fill those commercial leases and tenants that are along Colony and West Main. We need to continue to work with those developers and hold them accountable to make sure we're filling those storefronts. We need to do more on the west side of Meriden. I hear it time and time again that the west side seems to be forgotten about. As a Meriden resident, but also a lifelong West Sider, I know the importance of investing and believing in the west side of Meriden, and that's something that is not forgotten or lost, and we are working on regularly. I'm firmly in support of our schools and believing that the teachers and educators and administrators need the funding and the tools necessary to succeed, because the schools are much more than just a building where we send our kids from 9 to 3 or 8 to 3. They are buildings that not only mold the minds of our children that then become Meriden residents and hopefully come back to work, but they also set the foundation from what I believe is a strong economy for the city of Meriden. The reason many people move to Meriden or may not choose to move to Meriden has a lot to do with our school system. So we need a strong educational system, one of which I think is underutilized and underpromoted in our city, and we need to do more to expand upon that. Continue to get COVID under control and under wraps, educate the public as to what they need to do. I think I've done all I could over the course of the last year and a half to get that information out responsibly, but we're obviously not out of the woods yet. And then continue to support our public safety personnel and officials, make sure that they have the tools they need to succeed. And then this upcoming year, we are facing a revaluation year. Joe, this isn't something we tackled, I'm surprised, but revaluation and what that's going to do to property values. I think we all know that property values are on the rise and are increasing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing that the investments that we're making in our homes are coming back to us. However, we need to make sure that we have leaders at City Hall that recognize that that burden shouldn't just get pushed to our homeowners, that we need to do our jobs to responsibly budget and lower the mill rate accordingly. I look forward to doing that in the next budget cycle, along with the city manager and whoever else is elected at that time.
Well, I thank you, because that was in my stack of stuff, and that is something we will tackle at a later date as the campaign goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of the great city of Meriden, Mayor Kevin Scarpati. I thank you, sir, for joining us. It's always a pleasure seeing you. And my best wishes to you, and good luck on this year's campaign, and hopefully we'll see you back.
All right, Joe. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Kevin, you have a great night, sir.
You too, man. Thanks.
See ya. So there you go. You got it. The great city of Meriden's mayor, Mayor Kevin Scarpati. We thank him for coming on. We do have a lot more questions for him. that we did not, unfortunately, get a chance to get to, but it's okay. We'll see him again later on down the road as the campaigns move forward, and I'm sure he'll be back. So again, if you want to call in, 203-679-9610, or you can straight talk jv@gmail.com. Well, if we have a couple minutes, I just want to make a couple points on some of the things he said. And a couple of things that do still strike me as odd that what the city of Meriden should be doing. Again, this racial justice equality group, or whatever the frick they want to call themselves, has a lot of city officials in it. And I do not believe that is anywhere close to what our city's government should be involved in. It promotes, again, one race over another, and I think that's an issue. Again, when we talk about where our grant monies go, it shouldn't be going to just one specific racial group or another. Anything that the city does, anything that the state does, anything that the government does, in general, should be for the benefit of everybody. And if what they're trying to do does not benefit everybody, then they should not do it. That's their job. Their job isn't to pick winners and losers out of groups. When that happens, you start having nepotism, you start having favoritism, you have that's how, even here in the city of Meriden, what's called the Good Old Boy Network. Now, the Good Old Boy Network has been around for the last 30, 40 years. And it's still live and well today. Because that stuff doesn't change unless you get new leadership in the city. Either that, it just keeps on going in one big vicious friggin' cycle. And I think that's where, when you start letting government and city groups decide who wins and loses, that's a problem. And that's exactly why I had the issue with Councilman Graham. He is executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, but yet he's on the steering committee for grants that benefit his own group, that he's able to steer to his own group. That's an issue. When I look at half of the city council and they work and they work for nonprofits that benefit off the city, off the state, off the federal government, to me, that's a huge problem because they benefit off the city taxpayers. And that's never good. It's never good for the taxpayer. Never. So those are kind of things that bother me. And the fact that, again, this resolution declaring racism a public health crisis, if this wasn't the biggest crock of bullshit I've ever seen in my life, I said that back then, I say that now. This is what started all of it. Everything you're seeing today started right here. Back on 2/1/2020. That's when all this nonsense started because we allowed it to start. Everybody started it. So, listen, no doubt, Allison, that the benefits to children, but politicians shouldn't be playing a part in that. Because it might benefit your children today, but what happens when it goes to another group? And then your kid doesn't benefit from it. So right now it benefits. So again, and this is the problem. People look short term. You can't look short term. You have to look long term. Anyone can turn around and say, yes, but it benefits the kids. What? The kids of that group. And Boys and Girls Club for years have been bitching and complaining that the Y kept getting all the money. And it's funny that after Councilman Graham got on the Boys and Girls Club, money started funneling there. If you don't see a problem with that, I don't care who it benefits. If you don't see a problem with that, you have a serious issue. You don't really care about the kids. You really don't care about anything other than the fact that you're getting money at this moment in time. That's what you care about. But you'll be the first one to start there and complain when that money gets taken away from the what your kid's doing. So Boys and Girls Club, that money goes away and it goes over to another group. Then you'd be like, oh, well, that's not fair. Because now it's no longer benefiting your kid. That is the problem. That is the trend you start to create when you do things like this. He shouldn't be nowhere near a steering committee of any grants. Of any. That's the problem. And the only reason why Crystal Blake is now the assistant executive director of the Boys and Girls Club is because Lou Graham is out of here pretty soon. He's going to New Jersey. He's gone. He don't care. He doesn't care. He'll be gone. And then she'll take over and the gravy train will continue. That's what this is all about. Why are any counselors involved as executive directors of any nonprofit that gets beneficial money from the city? If no one sees a problem with that, then you are part of the problem. There's no question about that. And you can sit there and say it benefits this one, benefits that one. It does not matter. It's wrong. And if it's wrong no matter who it benefits. That's the way you need to be looking at things. And if you don't, like I said, then you are part of the problem, not part of the solution. I don't know how anyone could possibly disagree with that. Because it's pretty much common sense. Now, I like the fact that there wasn't too much commenting going on during his interview, which means hopefully you were all listening. And that's what's important. Listen, people know where I stand. People know I'm a conservative Republican, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to have the other side on. Of course I'm going to have the other side on, because you as an individual, you as a citizen taxpayer, deserve to hear every side, whether we agree with them or not. That's what this show is all about. Straight talk. It's not Republican talk. It's not Democrat talk. It's straight talk. And if you've listened to this show over the months, you know I've pissed off enough Republicans, as many as I pissed off Democrats, and I don't care. Now, do I agree with Kevin? On some stuff, yes, some stuff, no. I've known Kevin a long time. In fact, I know Kevin, for the last, 10 years, 12 years, since my son Joseph joined the YMCA and was doing soccer. So is he a great guy? Sure. Do we agree on politics? Probably most of the time, yeah, we do. Do I believe he's gone a little off the reservation? Yes. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to have him on the show. A lot of people complained, why are you having Kevin on the show? Why are you having Kevin on the show? He shouldn't be on your show. If that's the way you think, you've totally misjudged how I see things. You've totally misjudged what I am all about. I don't care what party you are. If you have good ideas or you have ideas, or if you're willing to step up, stand up and say, hey, I'm looking to help. I'm willing to talk to you. I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to put your voice out there and let the people decide. That's what I'm all about. When it comes down to the nitty gritty, that's what I care about. I care about everybody being an informed voter, not just voting R, not just voting D, not just voting I or U, whatever the hell letter you want to put before their name. And I think that happens an awful lot. Do I happen to think Republicans have a better ticket? Absolutely. That doesn't mean I'm gonna silence the other side. That would be irresponsible. That would be irresponsible for me, and it would be a disservice to you. So for those who think that I should not have any Democrats on here or any unaffiliated, you could go screw yourself. That's the great thing about having your own show. You can do whatever you want. And you have every right to listen or not listen. But every voice is heard. Even the crazies. Hell, I'd even let Holloway come on this show. That would be an entertaining, that would really be entertaining. If Ernestine Holloway decided to want to come on the show, things would go probably downhill pretty quick. I send an email, I send a text message or an email out to every guest that comes on the show. And I ask for one thing, and one thing only. Don't lie to my audience. Don't try to bullshit my audience. It is the fastest way to get me all over your ass. So I respect the fact that the mayor came on, and I respect the fact that he did provide facts. Now, some of them are up to his interpretation, especially when it comes to what's going on with this whole racial inequality crap. Because I find that to be the most, that nothing pisses me off faster than trying to label people and put people in certain boxes. Nothing irritates me more than trying to put a divide between the citizens of Meriden. We could agree to disagree, but don't dare try to put one above the other, because that's not going to end well. So, again, I thank the mayor for coming on. I think it was a great 40 minutes. I thank him for his time, and I hope you guys got what you needed out of that. If you have more questions, obviously, I will pass them along to him, and hopefully we'll have him back on the show. Like I said, we're going to have candidates. We're going to have all the candidates on. I think next week we'll get, Mr. Zabrowski is on there. I think Mr. Zabrowski, is going to be next to join us here. And listen, these are the people you need to hear from. These are the people. Whether you believe, even if you don't know if you think the same way they do, it doesn't matter. Listen to them. You might find yourself very surprised that they think exactly the way you do. I got you, right? You're coming up. How can I miss Mr. Ray Orlett? Of course he's going to come on the show. Saving the best for last, Ray? Is that that's probably what I'm going to do. Or I could have you on Sunday and one on Thursday. But make sure you listen to what both sides are saying. It's extremely important. Again, I still think that these numbers on the vaccines, listen, are they going up? They're going up by small numbers. Because I think, and I had this conversation with Leah, who is the director of Human Health Services, and I asked her the same question. I was like, okay, well, if you're doing all this outreach and now everybody's equal, maybe it's just, do you think maybe it's just the fact that people just don't want it? People just don't want the vaccine for whatever reason. And of course that's the case. That's the case many a times. There are still many in the minority community who do not trust it. Hell, there's a lot in the white community that does not trust it. Me being one of them. So, again, I think they try to push this false narrative. I think it's extremely dangerous to the city. And I think at the end of the day, it causes more tension than it does make a solution for anything. And again, same thing with the police department. When they go after the police department, how can one counselor ask, how is there no animosity? Why is there animosity between the police department and the city council? How the hell can the city councilor ask that fucking question? You can't. You can't. Because if you don't see it, you are part of that problem. And unfortunately, many in City Hall are part of the problem. But thankfully, you, ladies and gentlemen, out there, you out there is the solution. You are the solution. And you solve this problem come November. You solve it. And it's in the voting box. That's how you solve this problem. For far too long, they have gone unanswered. Changes are coming. Changes are coming, I hope. And I say hope because that's up to each and every one of you along with me. I'm going to do my part. You guys do your part. So that's for another episode. Lamont wants every state employee to be vaccinated or they're going to risk losing their job. We're going to get into all that stuff in the coming, probably on Sunday, on the legalities of that. But as always, we are running up on the 8 o'clock hour. So as always, I thank you guys all for tuning in. I thank once again, the Honorable Mayor Kevin Scarpati for joining us today and answering questions. It was a pleasure to speak with him. And I look forward to talking with all of you guys again on Sunday. So until then, as always, I love you. God bless you. Love each other. Bless each other. And until then, God bless this amazing country of ours, the great United States of America. I love you guys. I will see you on Sunday.
Emanation and a million faces formed together, made for elevation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender faith. It's like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping and the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. We're rising up, rising up, we're rising up, rising up, we're rising up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist.